pricing your weekly meal prep services. There are a few different ways to do it, and there is only one way I recommend. The first way I do not recommend is pricing hourly. And here's why. It can be hard to estimate what they're going to pay. This feels unpredictable to the potential client, not even after you have the client, and if it's changing from week to week. But when you're trying to explain your services to a new potential client, the simpler, more clear, and understandable you make it for them, the more likely they are to hire you, because a confused mind cannot make a decision to buy. You need to keep it simple. That's on one side. The other thing is it keeps your income inconsistent. What if they only want a couple things next week? Well, you've already set that day as their cook day, and now you're going to be making less. And if your service is consistent, like you're doing, as you know, meal prep services, the basic service is a 5 entree, 4 serving of each one service. If you're doing a 5 entree service and you're pricing hourly, you actually get punished for being faster and better at what you do. I do not recommend you price hourly. The other way I do not recommend you price is per meal. There can be some confusion around weekly meal prep services or just calling it meal prep. And that's why I try to always say weekly meal prep services, also known as personal chef services, or personal chef services, also known as weekly meal prep services, because the service part is the most important part of what you're calling it. And when you say meal prep, that opens up a world of selling plates. The difference between personal chef services, also known as weekly meal prep services, and meal prep is selling plates. Selling plates is someone who has a Facebook page. On Monday, they say, this is what I'm making this week. Tell me what you want by Wednesday. People will either say, oh, I want 3 of those and 2 of those or 1 of those, or I don't like anything you're doing this week. I'm not going to order, or I just want 8 of those or whatever. And you tally up what everybody wants. And on one day you make all the food and then you parcel it out, right? And you're limited to pricing whatever the market can bear for just buying food. $8 a plate, $10 a plate, whatever. That's what you get into when you're pricing per meal. And when people are thinking about it like that, for you to make the type of income and profit that you want as a personal chef, it doesn't work. The problem with just pricing a flat rate is you have a Monday client, you have a Tuesday client. Your rate is $350. The Monday client wants chicken tenders and spaghetti and 3 other entrees. And the Tuesday client wants all organic produce, prime beef tenderloin, wild caught scallops. Okay. The first client's groceries are going to be $75, and the second client's groceries are going to be $150 or more. God knows with grocery prices these days, right? As a personal chef, you price flat rate plus groceries for meal prep services, because basically you have your cook day rate and then a grocery reimbursement. What this does is, again, reinforce that this is a service. You are not selling food. The best way to price your weekly meal prep services is flat rate plus groceries. And this part is key. The things you need to consider when you're picking your flat rate are many and varied. We're going to go through this right now so that you can choose. The basic place to start is with 5 entrees, 4 servings of each one. This is the best profit for you and value for the client. That's why it's just the basic place to start. You start going smaller, you start having to price your rate lower, and it's just not as much profit for you. And the value also goes down for the client. So we started that 5 meals, 4 servings of each one. Every client's a little different. That is in the work you do when you're setting up your services and determining how they work. So the things you need to decide on when you're setting up, choosing your flat rate, are you are going to be doing your prep time ahead of time, which is onboarding the client, meeting with them, having the conversation with them every week about what they want. You run them through a food questionnaire and everything. You pull out a big list from your recipe collection to give to them. And then each week they're getting to you. They're choosing their 5 entrees. You take that, you make your grocery list, you do your labels, you do your menu, you do your invoice, right? On the day of their service, you're doing their shopping, going to their home, doing the cooking, chilling it all down, packaging the way they want it packaged up, storing it all in the fridge, doing the cleaning, presenting the invoice, and getting paid. There are some things that you might want to take into consideration that will bump your rate up a little bit or bump your rate down a little bit. One of those is geography. It can suck depending on where you are, but a personal chef who is in New York City or LA or San Francisco or just really any big metropolitan city like Dallas or Seattle or whatever probably charges higher than the average. The flip side of that is somebody who is in a very rural area, somewhere small, is probably going to be charging a little bit lower. Now, that being said, there are doctors and attorneys and people making a lot of money everywhere, but the cost of living is lower in a lot of places, and that can play into your pricing. Other things you're going to want to consider are we talked about your experience. Again, a little bit of this is just confidence, but if you have 15 years of hospitality experience, if you have already had your business for a long time and you're here because you need to raise your rates on your clients and you're uncomfortable and you want to see what's current now, you already have that. You're probably pricing higher than that. There's also, and again, this can also be confidence, is education. If you do have a culinary school degree and feel that that makes your service more valuable, you can certainly use that to justify bumping up your prices. Of course, I say all the time, you don't have to have culinary school to do this business. I've done over 20 years. I didn't go to culinaries. But if you have it, you can certainly leverage that in your pricing. And then if you have a very niche specialty, if you are doing all vegan raw with homemade cheeses and things like that, if it's a very complicated specialty, if you only do micro gastronomy, probably not if you're doing weekly meal prep services, but if you have something, that you do that's really rare and really complicated, or if it's just vegan and you feel it commands a higher price, again, most of these are all about how you feel. And that's why I talked about mindset first, because it's so important. But these are things that you'll want to take into consideration that might bump your price a little higher or a little lower. Every client can be different. You can do a bigger service. You can do a smaller service. What we're talking about right now here is the way to keep it simple, to start your basic pricing, to start that conversation with the client. The worst are the websites I see where they say, this is how much it is if you want 5 entrees, if you want 2 servings, 3 servings, 4 servings, 5 servings. If you want 4 entrees, 2 servings, 3 servings, 4 servings, 5 servings. This is, again, when you're getting into pricing like it is per item or something, that is a lot of information for a client. All they want is to get to we're fed and I didn't have to do anything. I can enjoy my time. I'm not stressed out, all those things. They want a personal chef to prepare food for them for the day. These are decisions that you haven't even made yet about services. That work needs to be done before you start getting into pricing. I want you to think about this as you being a private chef for the day and how much is reasonable for you to get done in one reasonably timed cook day. In general, 5 entrees, 4 servings of each one, with some chef's choice of sides if you want, is the place to start and to start your pricing. I would much rather you charge what your service is worth for a day to come cook for them. Again, this is sort of a simple set it and forget it. You pick your rate, and that's where everything starts from. Even if you'd consider doing a smaller service, things like that, you have your basic place to start. And you don't need to put Any other pricing on your website or whatever, you just say starting at 335 plus groceries. Easy peasy, easy for the client to understand, easy for you to know how much money you're going to walk away with. That's the simple, clean way to set it up.